First of all, villages. I'm Helen Paris. I am a member of VFC, which is Villagers for Change. Over the last 10 months, we have been an active group of villagers that came together out of concerns that were kind of three pillars. One was safety. We were extremely concerned how issues came about as a result of the wildfires. And before that, a section of McCarty Ranch that lost all power for over 4 days at 100+ degrees and smoke everywhere. So that was one of our hot buttons, and we had met with some board on that, but we were deeply concerned due to COVID and restrictions that were being put on. The second concern that everyone felt very strongly was that there was not a clear line of communications. And so that is our second pillar, is how to open up communication so that it's top down and bottom up, both directions. And then our third area was fiscal responsibility. So what we have tried very hard to do through these last 10 months is develop a website where everything is out there on the table, and we would encourage you all to go to it's villagersforchange.org and take a look at our website. And it will hopefully help you answer some of the questions about what all of our candidates stand for that are here today. Not only are you going to see it in writing, you're going to hear from them. And we hope that today is enlightening for you and can clear up some of your concerns, and we can address some of yours. At the very bottom of the screen, you will notice that there is a feature using your mouse, which is called the chat feature. If you turn that on, Liz Kung and I will be monitoring that and try to listen to your concerns. We have pulled a Bill Walsh and started with a couple of questions to get things rolling that will hopefully trigger you to ask some questions. There's a couple of scripted things, but there are things that I do not know. I don't know what they're going to answer to any of them. I just gave them a couple of questions to be prepared. But we're going to start right now with the same icebreaker that we used on Tuesday. And what I asked the people on Tuesday as well as today is, can you tell us something unique about yourself and how that has affected your life? So I'm going to start right now with Mikki. Mikki, can you tell us something unique about you and how that affected your life? Oh, you got to unmute. My fault. I forgot to remind you.
That's okay. I'm speaking up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Mikki, and I want to thank everyone for joining the Zoom meeting today and hearing what we have to say. I guess there's been a lot in my life, but the one thing that I'd like to share with everyone is, I'm not a golfer. Okay, I try. I'm not a golfer. Never liked it. My husband came home one day from golfing here and said, "Pack the bags, we're moving to the Villages." And I said, "What? Are you kidding me? I'm not moving. Just come and see. Just take a look." So I came, and he promised me if I made the move and didn't like it, then he would move back. So we sold our house and moved up here, and it was the best move I think I made my entire life. And I've made a lot of moves. I never had so many friends. I never had so many good neighbors. I never had so much fun. And I want to keep it that way.
Great. And Mikki, you live in which village?
Verano.
Great.
I'm right on the 6th hole.
Woohoo.
Oh.
Maybe we've hit your house. I don't know.
It could be.
Okay. Thank you, Mikki. Okay.
Thank you.
Frank Houghton. Frank, can you, Frank lives in, let's see, Frank, you live in Glen Arden, right? And you're going to unmute yourself. And Frank, can you tell us something unique about yourself and how that's affected your life?
Certainly. Thank you. Thank you. So I call this a study in humility. So I was living in Detroit, and I was a PhD candidate at the University of Detroit. And I had a friend named Bill, and he was an older gentleman. I thought much smarter than I, but a very arrogant individual. He knew he was smart. So the PhD process is this sort of thing where you do coursework, and then you present a proposal, and the proposal is either accepted or rejected. There's 3 phases. They can say, "We reject it," and you go away and never come back. We reject it, but you can do this coursework directed study usually, and come back after you finish this and or we accept it. Well, Bill had presented his proposal, and it starts about 1 o'clock. I didn't get over to the university till about 5 o'clock that night. I come up, and the university, the labs were on the first floor. On the second floor were the offices and the facilities. So I went upstairs, and Bill's on the bench with his head between his knees, almost crying. I said, "What happened? What happened?" This fellow is very smart. The professors, so you have a group of about 5 professors in your field and in periphery fields like physics and chemistry, and they just cut him up, and they told him to go away, and they were trying to figure out what type of, they weren't going to tell him to go away, they were telling him to go away, but do these directed studies. And I said, God, that's bad. So then my proposal was a week later. I was scared to death. I says, oh my goodness, these people are crazy, sort of thing. But I went into the proposal, presented my subject, and I was, I think, much more humble than Bill. Bill knew he was smart, and he presented it that way. I was humble, and they accepted my proposal. So I think the point here is be humble. You can learn something from everyone. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, and our last candidate today is our incumbent. When we had a lot of people leave the board, there were people that put their names forward to be on as the interim. And so Ed Ng, and Ed is in Highlands, and we'd like to have Ed speak and introduce himself about something that's been significant in your life. And it's a little bit about you.
Good, thank you. Thank you everybody attending, and Helen, thanks for the great introduction. I moved in the villages here, because of medical reasons. My wife is recovering from her sickness, and I signed in here as a renter for a year. And soon after 9 months, my wife and I talked to say, I think we should stay here and not move back to Silver Creek. That's where we came from. Interesting enough, of course, we love this place so much. In this, I've been here now 6 years. In the last 5 years, one thing I can claim as my credit is that I have successfully recruited 5 families, moved into the villages from around the Bay Area here. I've been here in the Valley about 40 plus years, and naturally, I have a huge circle of friends outside in the Bay, in South Bay here. And I'm very happy that I became a ambassador to them and get them to convince them to move here. Interesting enough, nowadays, among my circles of friends, when they in the villages here, when they have a friend that they were thinking about introducing them to the village, they send their friend to talk to me. They say, hey, go talk to Ed. Ed knows a lot about the villages. And, why is it so good here? Why is it really worthwhile moving here? And what's the lifestyle here? And it's all because of, well, how did that really change my life here? Well, because I'm so interested in this. And that's why last year, even though in prior years, the nominating committee has asked me to join multiple times and I turned them down. But after a few years, and last year when this opportunity opens up, I put my name in the hat and I decided to join the board. I feel that I can really, make some contribution to the board here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, folks, you've heard a little introduction from our 3 candidates today. Now you that are sitting here have a job to do. First of all, you need to have something to drink. This is Diet Dr. Pepper. Something harder will come later. The second thing you need to do is you need to get a writing implement. And the third thing you need to do is grab your ballots, because what we're hoping you're going to do today is, if you like what you hear with these people, mark them in, do the double envelope thing, and meet me down there when I'm turning my ballots in tomorrow, because that's what we're hoping you can do. So be good listeners, utilize the chat feature, and let us know your concerns that you want us to address. The other thing is that this isn't screened. We know that there is a wide spectrum of people on here today, and we appreciate that, because that really is the mission statement, that we want everyone's voices to be heard. So thank you all for being a part of this day. Okay, what we're going to do here is we're going to start briefly with a series of questions. The first one is going to go to Ed. And the question is, Ed, as a current seated board member, could you explain what role you have had in the current budget that was just announced? How did we get to this place where this current change just took place? And can you walk us through those steps?
Sure. We say when the budget came about, about this budget, a few of us on the board, a couple board members, especially I would say the treasurer, Bob Wilk, and I have a lot of interest in, how money is being spent. And we looked at, what the assessment has been over the years. And as Tim had presented to us a trend that was about at least a 3% increase year over year. And especially in the last few years, there was quite significant increases. Of course, we all understood, there are many things that drive the increases, but we really want to make sure that, this coming year, because a lot of, things has closed down, we did not spend so much money, and we had a lot of money left over, what are we going to do with it? So early in the budget process, we already set the tone to the staff that we are looking for a steady and not a huge increase in our assessment in our budget. I would say the staff did some really good work and came back with the budget of a reduction assessment of $9. I compliment them for doing that. However, there was also a bunch of money left over, about $500,000. It was first serviced by Bob, about this $500,000, and some of the board members, think that we should continue, as status quo as what we have done in the past, keeping that money as working capital. And I was probably the most vocal one. Started in late April with a lot of email to the my fellow board members, saying that we should not give this leftover money from last year as working capital. The staff has a budget, and we need to hold the staff to the budget. A working capital, in other words, is almost like a slush fund for them to use if they don't need a budget. They're not, being wasted, but it is in the working capital. It's another part. To me, that is not a good business practice. And we have lots of argument about that, prior to the board meeting. And Bob Wilk and I set off to go try to convince other board members. And he recruited Bob Cradley. And Bob Cradley and I, in the background, talk about, hey, let's set a motion in place. And I think we believe we have enough vote to, turn it in this direction and change, this past practices of leaving this extra money in his working capital. And thank goodness, in the last week's board meeting, after much discussion, Tim Sutherland finally, suggested that, hey, we'll take the $200,000 out of this, money that is not spent last year and return it to the residents immediately in this coming year's assessment. And that's why we got another $6.50 a reduction. It came down to like a $15 reduction in our total assessment for the coming year. That's how it came about. And I, first of all, I, thank my fellow board members' support to doing that. And certainly staff did a great job in getting us there as well. So.
Great. Thanks, Ed. Mikki, this question is coming to you, so make sure you unmute yourself. Mikki, could you speak to the issues of closing and reopening the amenities as it relates to C19 within the gates?
Well, from the very beginning of COVID, I felt as though we were all left out of the decision making. And I understand that we had to abide by state and county rules. But it just seemed to me that the village's rules were a lot stricter, saying because you're a senior community. Well, seniors 55 and up, so we're not that old. But I try to find out why. And I was always led to the same websites, and the same website always told me the same thing. that there wasn't any reason for us to be so shut down the way we were. Now today, the CDC says, take your mask off. Well, I'm asking the villages, what are we going to do? I understand you need herd immunity, and I don't see any reason why we can't find out who has their COVID vaccine and who doesn't, and find out if we have herd immunity here. And if we do, then I would challenge the board to open up and give us some freedoms back. This is not working for us, and we pay our money. And if I were on the board, that's the first thing I would do. I'd want to know how vulnerable we are as a community here.
And Mikki, just to follow up on that, my phone's been ringing off the hook about two issues. One, the opening up of all of our craft rooms and those meeting rooms and all of that, as well as the pools. Where do you stand on the pools?
I think all the pools should be open. There really isn't any reason. There never was. They're outdoors. They're not indoors. It's a very good way to exercise. And there's no such thing as social distancing when like you are indoors, although now there isn't any need to social distance either. So the whole thing seems pretty mute to me. But the pools definitely never should have all been closed, and they should all be opened immediately.
Great. Thank you, Mikki. Okay, Frank, we're coming to you. Make sure you unmute. And here's your question. There has been a tremendous amount of talk about the subsidies for the golf course and restaurant. Could you speak to this precedent and how you would address this if you were elected?
Yes, the golf course and the restaurant need to break even. The villages, right now, the golf course and restaurant are obtaining subsidies from all the villagers, from your HOAs. So if I go to play golf or eat at the restaurant, all the villagers are paying part of my bill. That's wrong. I should pay for my own golf and I should pay for my own meals. We should determine that we have, first of all, drive them to break even, and then secondly, determine if we have appropriate management and facilities in both these areas to obtain a maximum efficiency. These are assets, very, very worthy assets, very expensive assets that are owned by all the villagers. And it's every villager's responsibility to make sure that they are run the most efficiently. I'm not saying they're not, I'm just saying we should study it more thoroughly. But they definitely should be made to break even so that we obtain fairness to all villagers. Thank you.
Yeah. Frank, keep yourself off. You're going to stay on for one more here. I'm going to flip the order around a little.
Yeah, sure.
Frank, the current CBOD has a 30-year budget in place. Changes have been made to this model, but what significant changes or policies need to still be addressed?
Yeah, the 30-year budget has a few, I believe, a few holes in it. Okay, a few pots where money has been put aside. One is the ponds. We have about 20 ponds in the villages, and they're all, not all of them, but a lot of them are 50 years old, and the membranes are leaking. So the ponds are not functional ponds. So a lot of times ponds are used as percolation ponds to add to the aquifer, et cetera. These ponds we have in the villages are just reflecting ponds. And on the golf course, there are 6 ponds that add nothing to the play of the golf course. They're alongside the fairway, so you don't hit over the water at all. So we should consider these 6, certainly these 6 ponds on the golf course, as maybe not necessary. And I think there was a consultant that management hired that said that in effect. But I think we should study these 6 ponds to see if we can maybe get rid of them. And then there's 14 ponds inside the villages. Well, we should study these ponds too to see if the villagers want to pay for the maintenance of these ponds. So once we replace about a $2 million cost to replace all these membranes, but once we replace the membranes, these ponds will lose water forever. So they'll always be evaporating thousands of gallons of water off the surface. And in the village, we go to another extent. If we aerate the ponds to keep the algae down, well, it keeps the algae down, but it gets the surface area of the water almost up to infinity because we make a big spray, and that enhances the evaporation. So are we willing to spend this kind of money and this kind of effort on this type of feature? You know, California's in a drought. It's going to be in a drought probably forever. We have no new sources of water. We rely on the Sierra snowpack, and we have no new source of water, and we have many new needs of water. The farmers, LA, everybody wants our water, okay? So I think we need to rethink, don't spend the $2 million, but think about what we're gonna do. What's the long-term answer here? Thank you.
You bet. Frank, I'll tell you, when you were giving your answer and you said that 50 years the membrane starts to leak, I was worried about all of us living here and our membranes, but yeah, thank you so much. Mikki, how would you address the perception that residents are not being heard when you are on the board?
Well, to begin with, I can't fully address this issue until I am on the board because I don't understand what those restrictions are and why they're in place. I do know that voices are not being heard. They're not given enough time to speak to what they want to, what they're interested in. I would like to hear from the people. I think the people who live here, call them residents, call them customers. It doesn't matter what you call them. They're the ones paying the bills. They're the ones we should be listening to. So when I'm on the board, that would be one of the first things I'd look into. Why aren't people included? Why aren't we listening to them? Why do we, and we give them 2 minutes to say something and then we go, oops, okay, on to the next one. I've been at board meetings, so I know how they've run. And that would be one of the things I'd like to change. I want to hear from everyone who lives here.
Thank you. Ed.
Yes.
There's a lot of conversation about the word transparency. It's been going on in the villages for several years now. What do you think can be done to bring residents into the whole discussion on votes that take place at a board level 7-0? Kind of, I think that's, you've experienced that and been a part of that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, before I joined the board, I have similar perception about the board. How come it's always 7-0? Where are the, minority opinions of decent, dissenting opinions and so on. Well, as I joined the board, I understand, the reason why. It is because in the board right now, the way that we operate, we spend a lot of time exchanging emails days or weeks before the board meeting about certain topics. And we argue, we negotiate, and we talk, bring up opposing points, alternatives, and we discuss that. And then, when it comes to the board meeting, it came across to you that, this is the final solution. The original one was probably quite a bit different from what we finally show, you guys. What I feel like is that all those discussions that we have should have happened live in a real board meeting, so that you all know that, hey, my views are also represented in the meeting. I actually really do not mind that I hold the short end of the stick in some of these opinions, but I want to make sure that they got heard, they are being considered, because I really feel that anytime when when those kind of opinions get brought up, the final opinions will become a better one, even though those opposing opinions really don't make sense, but we've been considered. And to me, transparency is about that. None of you know where I stand, nor my other board members, because you all say, yep. You all say, well, yes, on this, but you didn't know. You did not know. You need to know. You should know. And that's the reason why I think, that's how transparency ought to work. And we should not really have these kind of email exchanges, behind, I would say behind you guys. But I have to do it because this is the way that we operate today. And I have to voice. And I would say throughout this last, 6 months, 7 months, I've been one of the most vocal person in these emails, sometimes some of my opinions are, to them, maybe to the rest of my board members are absurd, but other times I think they really, really make a lot of sense. And it really changes the course of, the action that we have taken. So, and I wish you guys do more, but unfortunately, that transparency is not there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mikki, over the last 10 years, there are at least 3 groups that have formed. Many would call these groups splinter groups. Why do you think they formed, and what could you do to try to reduce this from happening in the future?
To begin with, I think they formed because people are feeling like they're not being heard, and the issues they want to bring up are not taken up. So they go out and they do their own groups, little groups. And you've got a group here and a group there and a group there. And if I could say, let's just look at the issue with the coyotes. There are people who are working outside of the framework of the board, getting answers, trying to negotiate. And if you brought them all together, we probably could resolve this issue, but they're all splintered out doing different things. So my philosophy has always been to include everyone. When you get everyone's ideas, you generally get the best. These splinter groups should not be allowed to continue on their own. They're not sanctioned unless they come to the board. Now, they probably have some great suggestions, and we'd love to hear them.
Okay. Ed, I'm going to come back to you. Ed, can you define the term customer as it relates to the villages?
Thank you, Helen. Interesting you asked that. My view is that, I'm here and I've been called and I read, we're called residents. Residents, I didn't like that term that much. Residents remind me my college days in my residence hall. I'm a resident there, right? So, well, make me feel young again, but actually not. I want to be, when I move here, why I like this place more than where I used to live in Silver Creek is because I like my neighbors. I like the community. I like all that, thing. I know my neighbors. I know a lot more people after I moved here. Back in Silver Creek, I hardly know anybody. I barely know one of my neighbors of the 2 that is living next to me. What I really like to see is that we ought to be treated as a customer. We ought to be treated as a customer at the pro shop, at the restaurant, at the at our offices, at the administrative offices. We walk in like we are a customer. Now, I'm not saying we are not being treated like a customer, but I just saying that we are not being treated good enough, right? And likewise, as a board member, I really like to listen to, people out there. I invite, anybody to call me. I never refuse a phone call from my resident, even they may be yelling at me or say, why are you doing this? Why would you, speak about this issue like this direction or whatever? I'll explain to them. Well, sometimes we have to, agree to disagree. I gave my opinion and they give me their opinion, and their opinion is accepted and I would take it into consideration. My point is that, up and down the line from the board to management, all of you, all of us need to be treated like a customer in this place here instead of just like a residence. We in a residence, when I was in college, I'm being told what you need to do. You need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to follow this. As a customer, the mentality is that we are here to make you happy. That's what we need to do, and that's what we try to, of course, within limits, you cannot ask for the sky, we'll give you the sky, but within our limits, we need to make you happy, make you really, really like to live here and spend your time here, spend your money here. That's what we have to do. Thank you.
Great. I want to go to your business. That's what it's all about.
I'm too old to start a business.
Frank, there are several major projects in the funding cycle over the next 10 years. One of these is the replacement of the golf course greens. Would you please share with us your thoughts about this specific project?
Yeah, so we've all played the golf course, or at least I think most of us have played the golf course. The greens are good. They're not tour quality greens. They have some bad spots in them. But what I find hardest about the greens is to read them. But okay, forget about that. The greens are in pretty good shape, but they do have some difficult areas in them. But to replace the greens in the budget is about $10 million. That's a lot of money. Okay. Golf experts estimate that golf greens should last 20 years to forever. Well, the forever is if you take care of the greens, if you service them and adequately take care of them. Well, that's what I think we should do. We should make our greens last forever. I don't advocate that we should reduce any amenities. I mean, if we feel that we have to replace the golf greens, fine. But I don't believe, as I look at the greens and play the greens, that there's any need for new greens on this golf course. Thank you.
And saving $10 million along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a question here from Diane Malcolm, and she's posed it to everyone. She says, in your opinion, do you believe that it will take another year of shutdowns to experience a decrease in HOA fees? And I'm going to go with Ed first on that. So.
No, I don't believe that we take any. First of all, I don't believe there'll be another year's shutdown, to begin with. And second thing is that, we all need to understand that, there are lots of things that, out there, utilities, especially insurance and so on. The rate increases out there, the cost of living increases. We just need to manage through that. Like this morning's meeting, the two boards got together and we had an insurance meeting. And through that, we make some really good decisions about what we buy and what we don't buy in insurance. And at the end, there is a reduction of expenses of, I would say about a couple $100,000 in our insurance bill for the coming year. So I don't think, to answer the question directly, I don't think it would, it would take another shutdown to reduce, our HOA. And please do not expect that HOA will go down year by year. That is just not a reality. I think we just need to do our best to manage through these increases that pass on to us from the utilities, and do our best, in terms of improving our efficiency and how we use our money wisely. And that's what we ought to be doing.
Okay.
But one other thing is also, it is extremely, extremely important, for us to improve our amenities and improve our facility, improve it to a certain extent, updating them. I'm sure you guys, have many different opinions about what part of the amenities that we have are outdated and need to be updated. And, I like to hear those, kind of suggestions and recommendations from you guys, coming to the board if I'm on the board next year.
When you're on the board next year, Ed. Okay, Frank, can you piggyback on some of what Ed had to say and see if you can add anything else to that, please? So again, it's just, in your opinion, do you think it'll take a whole nother year of shutdowns in order to experience a decrease in HOA fees? I guess is the shutdown relative to HOA's fees?
Yeah, see, I guess I'm concerned that the HOAs are going down, what, $15 or something to that effect. But we've had all these facilities shut down. We haven't had to heat them, et cetera. So I mean, the management said they improved the efficiency of the utilization of the utilities. Well, yeah, they closed the facilities. That's improved the utilization. I mean, that's illogical to me. Okay, I believe that the amenities should be open now. The California is going to be in the yellow area very, very soon. And I think we have, I don't know this, but I think we have herd immunity. If I talk to people, everybody I talk to has their shot. And I think you need something like 60% of the people to be vaccinated to have herd immunity. So I think, the villages are at herd immunity. I think we should be probably safer than being outside in the general populace. So I think we need talk about returning to full utilization of all facilities, and okay, maybe the cost will go up. Well, they shouldn't go up. They should go back to where they were. So hopefully, no, let's not save any money. Let's have a good time. Let's get what we paid for. Thank you.
You bet. And Mikki, so again, just, I know you've already said that you felt that we should be open. Do you anticipate opening up is going to have any kind of an effect with the HOA fees?
Well, I would love to see HOA fees go down, but realistically, that isn't going to happen. What we are striving for now is hold on. Get as much for our money as we can. You're not going to see a reduction in HOAs. I'd be very surprised if that were to happen. So just opening up shouldn't affect the HOAs. The opening up will affect our quality of life.
And I just want to clarify something here, because there might be some people on the call that are cringing when I use the word HOAs. I think it's important to clarify that sometimes terms become inclusive, even though in practicality, there is actually two unique terms. HOAs does reflect the homeowners association. So that would fall under either the ABOD or the homeowners, those two boards. And fees for services technically falls under the club board. But I don't know about you guys, but when George and I were looking to move here, the realtor listings pointed to it and say HOAs. They do not discriminate between those values. So I think it's important that I'm just going to give a caveat here that throughout the day-to-day, when I direct it at HOAs, it is actually a terminology that best describes fees that are charged, and we write one check and we kind of don't care who it's going to. So I will take the hit on that. I understand there are two significant variables, but the term in the world is HOAs to anybody coming to look here, because they don't get a breakdown between the two. Okay, there's another question here coming in. Betty Scott talked about that there used to be study sessions, and both, I believe, Mikki and Ed spoke to the fact that about the need to listen to concerns of the villagers. And she said she's wondering why a lot of these study sessions kind of went away, and what steps could be taken to try to ensure that we are utilizing the talent base of, some of the smartest people in the world live here. There's a nuclear physicist two houses away from me. There is just incredibly bright people. And how can we utilize those people? And I'm going to start first with Ed, but Ed, I know there's talent bases of personnel managers and everything that can really address this. So could you specifically speak to that issue?
Yeah, certainly. First of all, about study sessions, I asked for it when I first joined the board a few months ago. And it is how I read it, how I see it is, it's Mike, our president on the board's decision not to have study sessions. And is, he managed the board, so he decided not to have them. So we just kind of have to follow how come we are there right now today. Personally, I think, study sessions and working committees, it's extremely valuable to us on the board, and extremely valuable to you as a customer, as a residents here as a villagers. Why? Just as Helen said earlier, there are lots and lots of subject matter experts throughout this community, and a lot of them, when I find out about them, I go talk to them. They are so happy to give me opinions, why and what we should do and how we should do it and things like that. So we really, in my view, we need to have, form a lot more of these kind of working committees to take over, certain parts of the, job or research, I would say, and do studies what we ought to be doing. Well, some of them has been formed, like the VGC, the Villages Golf Committee. That is a good group. Last year, I think a bunch of them, the entire group resigned, and now we reformed it and chartered again. I think they're doing, good work for us about, the maintenance and the direction we need to take on the golf courses. The Technology Committee is another good committee. It's been formed, addressing what we ought to be doing with this Comcast contract. I don't know, you know that or not. I know it personally. Many of my friends that came and asked me, how come they're paying so much for Comcast and getting so little? And there is a way to get your bill down. And we are, actually not happy about this contract, but this is, history, because there was a huge investment Comcast had made 15 years ago to build infrastructure around here, and they recap all of those capital investment. That's why our bill is like this. But coming up, the team is, send out a survey that I hope all of you have answered, and figure out what is the right path, the right recommendation are coming back to the board. I think they are finishing their final report. And they are gonna advise us, about who are the providers and how we do negotiate and so on and so forth. I don't want to take away their thunder. But anyway, to make a long story short, we really should employ a lot more of you guys out there to help us determine what direction we're gonna go, in this community.
Right. Hey, Mikki, this one, I'm not gonna have everybody ask the same questions, because I think that we'll find some redundancy. But Mikki, I know you and I have chatted significantly about the safety issue. And I think that's how we got to know each other, last year with the fires, as well as the power outage. I'm kind of putting a twist on what Gail Goodson's asking, but what are your concerns about evacuation? What are your concerns about how we handle safety within our condo villages, and across the board? Can you speak to that, Mikki?
What I'm the most concerned about is the fact that we don't have any clear plans. We are scrambling, and we need to come together and identify an escape route, a plan for how to handle when power goes out and people are left alone in their homes at 100-degree temperature. These are things the board should immediately jump on. Now, there are committees that are needed for that. And we do have one committee, but people are talking about disbanding that committee. So, that's a big issue here. We need to be looking out for one another. And part of that is to clearly define, what are we going to do if this happens again? And, in time, it will happen again. So we don't have a way of doing that now. I think most people, this one thinks we should do this, and another one thinks we should do that. And that's where we need to come together, and we need to bring the people together to identify what's the best route to handle that. Safety is the most important thing that we have here at the villages, and we need to take care of one another and not just run off and do our own things, because the villages did not define a plan.
Great, thank you very much. Frank, I'm going to come to you real quick with this one. This is from Rajiv, and he's saying that he's hearing a lot of rumors that the Villagers for Change is advocating shutting down the par 3 golf course in the center and selling it off for condominiums, shutting the golf course several days a week. And I believe that most of us got flyers in the mail that basically said that. Have you heard that in your relationship with all of us? And what is your take on that?
I've heard nobody state that. There was a flyer out, and I don't want to say who wrote it, but it was basically the fellow that wrote it took his playbook from maybe some fascist dictator. So he used half-truths, lies, and he tried to put fear in everybody's value system. there has been no plans to lower any amenities, close any golf course or lower any amenities. All we're advocating is trying to make sure all the amenities are up and running efficiently and running so that they are self-sustaining. Again, I don't want somebody to be paying for my meal when I'm eating at the restaurant. It's just not fair. Thank you.
You bet. Mikki, I'm going to come back to you because you said this one issue already, and I just want to kind of get some clarification. What do you think is the most pressing issues? I think the number one you're saying is safety, that are being faced in the villages today that in your mind are not being addressed.
Aside from safety, I would say that one of the big issues here is that people, the residents, my fellow neighbors, don't feel that they're important. Safety was one way of showing them they weren't when we didn't have any plan for them, not listening to them when they come to us, and not, I think that Ed put his finger on it when he said, somebody made a decision to get rid of the groups that we had. No, it shouldn't have been that way. We all need to come together as one united village. And if it takes little groups of people with using all their expertise to come and help us to manage this village, that's what we should do. We'd have more satisfied customers if we just listen to what they have to say.
Ed, real quick, and then I'm going to come back to you, Frank, kind of on a follow-up on this, but Ed, staying in the same thing about listening is, what more specifically, based on your experience as a board member, can we do to listen to the residents? How do we open that channel of communication more efficiently?
Okay, well, first of all, I say right now we have no what we call town hall meeting. What you hear sometimes every month is what we call the president's message. Yes, it was written by the president, and yes, we, the board members, get a chance to read it and make some suggestions, and that is it. It come across as like, a person's, message. I wish, that we have a town hall meeting, the entire board would be sitting in front of all of you guys and hear you out what you say and have a chance to have a dialogue with you about what you see is a problem or what you want as a change in here and what you are happy about and so on and so forth. So to me, communication need to go both ways, and we need to give more time in our, I think what we call residence forum in the meeting. I actually commended, the association board, the way they do it. It come across to me a lot more than us on the seaboard, because why? They gave that forum in the front end of the meeting. It gave me, the impression that you are listening to me, not in the end of the meeting, you're running out of time. Every time we had meeting, we run out of time. It was hastily get done with it, 20 minutes, pop. And guess what? Your feeling was that I spoke, but I wasn't heard. So we need to change that. Thank you.
Frank, this is probably the $1 million question. I think it was alluded to on Nextdoor today that we have more people running for the boards this year than have happened in many recent years. In fact, usually they're begging people to run. I think that having people run is an asset for our community, because when we have choices, that's an effective change. But I believe that what's come out of this is some harsh feelings. People are being attacked, and it's counterproductive to the villages. Are we going to need to heal once this election takes place? And if so, and I know I'm throwing you a curveball, but how do we kind of run with that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So I guess my statement on that would be is none of the candidates on the Village for Change candidates have created, I don't believe have created any hard feelings. There have been some candidates that have created some hard feelings. I believe those people will have to heal themselves. Okay, I'm sorry. They're just, it's the way it's going to go. So I think what we need to do is listen to all the villagers and let everybody communicate. But I don't think we need to facilitate any particular people to make things happen. I think it's time will heal all wounds is maybe the way to say it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, somebody has their microphone on with cell phone ringing. So just to, Mikki, a little bit more on that, please, if you would. When it comes to healing, will there have to be some healing? And if so, do we just bury it under the carpet and the losers just run away and then they feel like they're the stepchildren? Or, I think it's okay to disagree.
Unfortunately, there is a divide right now. I have to say, though, that, for a couple of years now, I've wanted to run for the board. And I've been out on my own and didn't exactly know how to do it. And I want to thank the Villagers for Change for stepping in and allowing me a platform within their group. I think that a lot of my goals align with theirs, and that might be one of the reasons why. So when we get whoever gets on the board needs to involve even those who didn't make it to the board. That's one way of healing. We're not going to, if I'm on the board, I'm not going to shut down somebody because they're in that other group, which I don't want to say. And I'm not going to shut them down. I want to hear from them too, because everybody is valuable. Everybody has something to say. The fact that we have so many people running, the first time I've seen this since I've lived here, is such a good sign. We should take it as a positive and not a negative.
Great. Well, listen, I would like now to invite all three candidates that have been speaking with you today to give us a few closing remarks. Again, if you don't have your ballots out, or if you need help knowing how to fill them out, I'd be happy to tell you what I think. But what I would like everyone to do right now is just listen one more quick zap from each of the three candidates, and then we're going to run all the candidates by that are on today. So Frank, I would like to go to you first. If you could just give us a few closing remarks, please. You're off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm on now, right?
Good.
Yeah. I'm Frank Houghton, and I'm second from the last on the ballot here. I'm not the least, but I'm second from the last. I have experience, training, and sources to solve complex problems. I'd like for your vote. I think we need to, I'm going to make a statement. I think we need to bring some computer automation into the village. The villages in general is doing things in a way of the 1990s, maybe the year 2000. They need to be brought up to recent specs on computers, and then we can generate some statistical analysis to do a better management of the situation here. Determine what facilities are being used by who, and we can use that also data to do maintenance on these facilities. Right now, too many things are being done by hand in the village. So I'd like to talk to some of the experts that we have in the village and bring the villages up to the year 2020. Thank you.
That's great. Actually, it'll be budget year 2022, I think, by the time you hop on. Mikki, could you give us your comments, please? And
can you hear me?
Yep, good now.
Okay, all right. So first I want to say thank you, everyone. And please vote for me. And here's the ballot. I'm way down here, but I'm still part of the ballot. You can find me right away. I don't have a lot to say in closing other than it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Would you? Would you be mine? And would you vote for me? Thank you.
Mr. Rogers. There
Yes.
you go. Okay, and Ed, final thoughts?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Helen, and the rest of the staff here, or members of the BFC, in giving me this opportunity to participate in this meeting, and a chance to share my my personal opinions and my work experience on the board with all of you. I want to thank all of you guys' time to listen to me and others in this Zoom meeting. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Ed Ing. I am number 2 on the ballot, right behind Del Yamaki. After you check out Del Yamaki, give me your vote. Especially, if you want somebody that is really going to be dedicated, working on the board, and not afraid to ask the tough questions. And that's what I'm going to be. And I hope I'll get your vote and be able to continue to serve you guys on the coming year. Thank you so much.
You bet. We are thrilled to have these 3 candidates with us today. Again, Frank Houghton from Village Glenarden, Ed Ing from Village Highlands, and Mikki Fillhouer from Village Verano. And in addition, on Tuesday night, we also had Del Yamaki from Village Del Lago and Manjeet Patel from Prabari. They're all on here somewhere. So I just want you to know that these are the 5 people that as Villagers for Change embraced people wanting to run, that were committed to listening to everyone. And that I used a quote the other day from my mom that taught me a long time ago. She said, Helen, always leave something better than how you found it. I truly believe in my heart that these 5 people can leave the Villages better than how they found it. And I think one of the greatest things about that is that they are diverse from all over the Villages. This is not ownership from one select village. We have really worked hard to ensure that this would be for everyone. And secondarily, I'd really like to encourage you, of course, our phone is ringing and George just walks away, to vote not only for George Paris from Village Olivas, but Linda McChesney from Village Montgomery. And I wanted to say, hopefully he can turn this off. George, can you please start that and answer it? Okay, just answer the phone. Okay, folks, the most important thing is that when you're voting, it's a challenging thing to decide. Do you vote for 6? Do you vote for 5? Do you vote for 2? Do you vote for 4? When it comes to the ABOT, Villagers for Change is advocating simply voting for 2, voting for Linda McChesney and George Paris. And this is the reason for it. If you vote for 4, it is guaranteed that the status quo will continue. And I believe Ed spoke very strongly about status quo today. We cannot be afraid to change. So please, if you embrace the things we're saying today, vote for Linda and George on ABOT. And when it comes to CBOD, we believe we have given you 5 worthy candidates for your vote, for your patience, for your commitment, for your dedication, and most of all, with 2 big ears and a big heart, that they will listen to you. So with that, get those ballots out, folks. Hopefully I'll see you at the ballot box. We want to make a difference by giving back to this place we call home. Thank you for this time together, and good evening. Cheers to the Villages, the greatest place to live. Thank you all.
Thank you, Helen.
You bet.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.